Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for coming out today. My name is Shafqat Ali, and I'm the Member of Parliament for Brampton Centre. Before we begin, I want to acknowledge that we are gathering today on the treaty territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation, and before them, the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee, Huron, and Oded. We also acknowledge the many First Nation, Métis, Inuit, and other global indigenous people that now call Brampton home. We are honored to live, work, and enjoy this land. We are joined by my colleague, the Honorable Chrystia Freeland, Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance. Ruby Sahota, the Member of Parliament for Brampton North. Manindra Sidhu, the Member of Parliament for Brampton East. And Sania Sidhu, the Member of Parliament for Brampton South. I would like to thank KJS Transport Inc. not only for graciously hosting us today, but also for being one of the many great logistics success stories here in Brampton. They are among the frontline workers of the transportation industry, which played such an essential role throughout the pandemic, ensuring that vital supplies were readily available to Canadians. Now, I would like to invite Mr. Tanveer Singh from KJS Transport Inc. to come and speak, please. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Honorable Minister Freeland, members of Parliament, and members of the ODTA and guests. My name is Tanveer Singh. I am the Operations Manager here at KJS Transport. On behalf of KJS Transport and our team, we welcome you to our facility. We are very happy to have you all here with us today. This company was founded in 2002 by my father, Kawant, and my uncle, Jinder. They were two immigrants who arrived in Canada from Punjab in the 90s and worked hard to build up this company. They started out as truck drivers who had one truck each and drove it themselves as owner-operators. Slowly, as they saw the demand in the logistics services grow in the region, they began to acquire more trucks and expand. Today, this facility is home to 300 pieces of equipment, a mechanical shop, a warehouse, and a head office. KJS, being one of the leaders in the local industry, employs over 150 people, including drivers, mechanics, dispatchers, and office staff. We are proud to provide quality jobs to young people, new immigrants, and diverse members of the local community. My cousin Amrit Buttar and I have plans to continue growing as we are the next generation in our family carrying on this business. It's a tough industry, but an important one. That is why we are committed to working with our government and other partners in the industry to keep it strong. Again, thank you all for taking the time to visit us today. It means a lot to us and our entire team. Thank you.
Okay, all together? Sure. In front of the podium? Okay. Oh, maybe, yeah, in front of the podium. Yes, good idea. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Singh. We know that for people in Brampton and across Canada, affordability is a top concern. That's why our government has made affordability a top priority, while also supporting small and medium-sized businesses. Now, I'll turn it over to Deputy Prime Minister Freeland to talk about our plan.
Merci beaucoup, Shafkat. Je tiens d'abord à souligner que les terres sur lesquelles nous sommes réunis font partie du territoire traditionnel des Mississauga de la Première Nation Credit et avant eux le territoire traditionnel des Haudenosaunee, des Hurons et des Wendat. So I am so glad to be here in Brampton today and to be here with my friends Shafkat, who was nice enough to introduce me, to be here with Ruby, Maninder, and Sonia, and many of their family members. We have such a great team of MPs here in Brampton, and I just want to say to everyone who lives in this great community, you are so well represented. Your MPs are hardworking, they are smart, they are persistent when their communities need something. I know that resistance by me is futile and better just to listen to them and to do what they tell me Brampton needs. I also just really want to say how happy I am and how really inspired I am to be here today at KJS. What I saw today, what we're all seeing around us, this is Canada, and this is Canada at its best. A hard-working family working together, creating great jobs in the community, creating, as we just heard, jobs for new Canadians, jobs for young people here. Everyone I talked to, I could see how enthusiastic they are about their work, how hardworking they are, how talented, how collaborative. And I really just want to say, seeing the work you do here, it makes me proud to be Canadian. It inspires me about our country. And I'm just really, really grateful to you all. The past 2 years have demonstrated just how important strong and reliable supply chains are. They were absolutely critical in getting the supplies and the vaccines that Canada needed to get through the pandemic. And actually, I asked one of the women who works in the front office how the COVID reopening was going. A very nice woman called Leslie, and she said, you know what? We never shut down. We provide essential services, and you certainly do, all of you here, and I'm really grateful to you for that. It is your work that keeps the shelves of our grocery stores stocked. You are the people who make sure that we can put food on the table. I know that KJS does a lot of work in the automotive industry. Your work means our car sector can keep on operating and people who work in it continue to have great jobs. Today, our economy is recovering very strongly from the COVID recession. Our GDP today is 2.2% bigger than it was when COVID hit, and we have the strongest jobs recovery in the G7. And that means that we need our supply chains today more than ever to continue to drive economic growth for Canada. And we know that the heart of strong and reliable supply chains is truckers. Truckers here in Canada who move the goods that Canadians need at all hours of the day and no matter what the weather. And it is inspiring entrepreneurial, innovative companies like KJS here in Brampton, and the hardworking drivers, mechanics, front office people who I've had the real privilege and honor of meeting today, without whom our country, our economy would not function. Alors que notre économie continue de croître et pour assurer que nos chaînes d'approvisionnement peuvent livrer les biens dont les Canadiens ont besoin, notre gouvernement travaille fort pour que notre industrie du camionnage reste forte dans les mois et les années à venir. So that's why we've implemented 10 days of paid sick leave for workers in federally regulated sectors, including trucking. We fought to protect NAFTA and Canada's trading relationship with the United States. So much of the work done out of these offices, these warehouses, is cross-border work. People here know very, very well how important that relationship is. We fought to preserve it, and we're going to continue to do that. We're investing in immigration. This is a remarkable competitive advantage that Canada has in the world. And we need to continue as a country to rely on our really unique and remarkable openness to immigration, the fact that we are a society that welcomes new Canadians as a way to create shared prosperity for all of us in the years to come. To make sure the trucking industry can remain competitive in the green economy of tomorrow, we are investing in helping you make your trucks more energy efficient, like the beautiful brand new green dump truck I saw just out in the yard, and in getting more zero emission trucks into fleets. And we are helping our Canadian businesses grow and create good middle class jobs in places like innovative entrepreneurial companies like KJS. But even as the Canadian economy is growing, and as Canada continues our strong recovery from the COVID recession, I know that inflation is making life more expensive for families here in Brampton and across the country. Inflation is a global phenomenon. It's caused by Vladimir Putin's illegal invasion of Ukraine, and it's caused by China's zero COVID policies and by the supply chain snarls, which have affected the whole world as we have opened up in the wake of COVID. And actually, the trucks that I am looking at right now behind the cameras, those are actual physical examples of how global supply chain problems are creating real challenges here in Canada. The wonderful mechanics here at KJS explained to me that those trucks aren't able to leave this workshop because they're waiting for parts that originate in China. So we really are, all of us, affected by global supply chain problems, and we're feeling it. We're feeling it when we go to buy our groceries. We're feeling it when we go to fill up our cars or our trucks with gas. So what is our government going to do to help Canadians weather this latest storm? Well, what we're going to do is exactly what we've done over these past 2 years of COVID. We have a plan, and we're going to work together and support each other to get through this. We've introduced programs like the multi-generational home renovation tax credit. That's going to make it more affordable to have parents or grandparents living with their family under one roof. Also, an important part of solving the housing challenge many of us are facing. And at this moment of global inflation, our government has an affordability plan to help Canadians directly with the rising cost of living. Here's what our affordability plan includes: an enhanced Canada Workers benefit that will put up to $2,400 additional dollars into the pockets of low-income families starting this year. Cutting childcare fees by an average of 50% by the end of this year. A 10% increase in old age security for seniors 75 and over. That comes into effect this month. a dental care program starting with children under 12 this year, a $500 payment this year to help people who rent and are struggling with the cost of housing, and of course, our main support programs, the Canada Child Benefit, the GST credit, the Canada Pension Plan, Old Age Security, and the Guaranteed Income Supplement are all indexed to inflation and will be increasing. For a couple here in Brampton, with an income of $45,000 and a child in daycare, this affordability plan could mean roughly an additional $7,600 on top of existing benefits, so more than 16% of their annual income this fiscal year. A senior with a disability living here in Brampton could benefit from over $2,500 more this fiscal year than she received last year. Now, these measures are part of the fiscally responsible budget that I tabled in April. We know we can afford it because they are already accounted for in our AAA rated fiscal framework. We got a AAA rating reaffirmed by S&P after the budget was tabled, and this money, this spending was in that budget. But for the Canadians who need the support the most, for the most vulnerable Canadians who are really struggling when it comes to buying groceries or filling up their car or truck with gas, these measures represent new money that they didn't get last year and will make life more affordable exactly when they need the support the most. This is a difficult time for countries around the world, and it's a challenging time for Canadians. But thanks to companies like KJS and the amazing people who work here, who I was so lucky to meet today, there is absolutely no country in the world better placed to navigate the global economic challenges than Canada. We really are better positioned than any other place on Earth. So let's keep on working together. I know we're going to meet this challenge, and I'm really, really privileged to have had the chance to talk to so many people here today. Okay, now back over to Shefkat.
Thank you, Deputy Prime Minister. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Now, I'd like to pass on the mic to Adrian, the Press Secretary of Deputy Prime Minister, for media questions. Thank you. Adrian? Sorry, can't you?
Bob.
Oh, sorry, Bob, I miss you. My apology. Ontario Dump Truck Association,
You're not
Bob.
that little, Bob.
So he would
Guys,
come here
okay,
to say a
does
few
Bob
words
look
before we
little to you?
head to media questions. Please, thank you.
Thank you.
My apologies.
No problem. Honorable Ministers, MPs, fellow members of the ODTA, and our friends here at KJS Transport. My name is Bob Punya. I'm from the Ontario Dump Truck Association. I'm also a director there. We're a voluntary organization. We work at the grassroots to really discuss trucking issues, specifically in the dump truck industry, but also transport industry issues as well. On this occasion, our association represents roughly around 2,000 drivers, all that are hardworking, and some of them are here today, as you can see behind me. We're happy to be a part of today's events here at KJS Transport. One of the stars in the industry, the trucking industry, is essential, vibrant, part of the region, economy, and the country at large. KJS's owners are also here, Mr. Jinder Buttar and Mr. Kamaljit Singh. I want to thank them for hosting us and giving us the opportunity to be here today. From moving goods to literally building roads, bridges, infrastructure, our hard workers can be found all across Ontario, Canada, keeping everything moving. Minister, as you know, there are challenges in our industry facing, much like those facing other industries, from high fuel prices to high insurance rates to regulatory burdens to labor shortages. The cost of doing business keeps increasing. It's harder than ever for families to make ends meet. That's why we really appreciate you taking the time to be here today, to listen to our concerns, learn more about our industries, and share with us what your government can do to support these grassroots companies and the workers and their families that rely on them. I cannot stress enough how important it is that our leaders be connected to the grassroots organizations and the people like those gathered here today, which is everyone here. I really appreciate you guys coming.
Yeah, thanks for coming.
This is the only way to truly understand how we can work together and keep our economy and country going. Minister, you are the first federal minister to do a visit like this with us. It really means a lot, so much that we look forward to staying in touch, having ongoing dialogue with you and your office. Also, I want to thank the local MPs who are always accessible and responsive to all of us. Thank you. We have a little bit that we wanted to give to the minister. There you go.
Oh,
from
thank
the
you.
association right there. A nice, beautiful jacket there.
That's good. It's good for the rainy weather.
Now she can be a part of our little group.
Okay.
Thank you, Bob. Now I'd like to pass on to Adrienne for media questions, please.
Good afternoon, Minister. Prabjot Sohal from Red FM. Since you're here at a trucking facility, trucker owner-operators are saying that their costs have significantly gone up because of the fuel costs. Fuel prices are up, and last week, Premier Doug Ford was here in Brampton to announce the cuts in provincial gas tax and was asking the federal government to do the same while lowering the carbon tax. So how do you plan to help these truckers with fuel costs and keep the supply chain moving?
Yeah, thank you for the question. It's a very important one because the increased price of energy is a challenge for businesses like KJS. It's a challenge for families, and we all know that. I think it's important for us also to be really clear on what is driving this increased price, and it is Vladimir Putin's illegal war in Ukraine. We need to be very, very clear about that, and that's one reason I think as Canadians, we should be proud of the strong action our government is taking to support the very brave people of Ukraine. But when it comes to companies like KJS, when it comes to Canadian families, let me say two things. First of all, from my perspective, this price increase in fuel costs is a reminder of why climate action is so important and why, as a country, we have to work even harder and move even faster towards a green economy. It's an insurance policy against higher energy prices. And, you know, I was very interested and inspired to hear about the measures being taken here, the trucks being purchased here, the dump trucks being purchased, which are more energy efficient than previous generations of trucks. And that, as I said in my remarks, is something our government is going to continue to support with targeted support to the trucking industry to help companies like KJS kind of future-proof themselves against future energy shocks. In terms of energy prices and the carbon price and Brampton families, I think it's important to remind people that, you know, our price on pollution is going to help the whole country transition to a green economy. It's going to make us safer in the future and protect our planet. But at the same time, that money goes directly back to Brampton families. Brampton families are going to get $745 for a family of 4 back this year through the price on pollution. Now, that's really significant when it comes to a family buying its groceries, buying fuel. And then the final thing I'll say on fuel costs is, I am very aware of affordability challenges everyone in Canada is facing. We need to balance what we do in terms of affordability with the need for fiscally responsible policies right now. The last thing our government wants to do is to pour fuel on the flames of inflation. We don't want to make the problem worse. So we're always looking for a balance between supporting families and fiscal responsibility. And that means that nothing is off the table, and we're going to keep on, really, I liked what Bob had to say about talking to people across the country. That's my personal mission, to talk to Canadians, to talk to Canadian entrepreneurs, to talk to Canadian workers, to talk to Canadian families, understand what the economy looks like from their perspective, and we're always ready to be agile and do more as needed.
Thank you, Minister. Yeah, this is a follow-up. Lowering childcare costs is part of your affordability plan. In Ontario, while municipalities are accepting applications, we are hearing from many operators that they are reluctant to sign up. Some are even withdrawing their applications, saying that they don't have clear financial details and don't know if they'll be able to meet their costs. What is your plan to make the province accountable for this money, because it's the federal fund, and how do you ensure that the plan is implemented and goes ahead?
That is an excellent question, and part of my answer is I am relying on journalists like you and your listeners and the people of Brampton. I am a mother of 3. I know how important it is for mothers, for parents, to know our children have the best possible care and early learning. I think it's impossible for a mother to leave the house and go to work if you don't know your children are being really well educated and taken care of. And I also know for mothers who are out working, how expensive childcare is right now. A lot of people said to me as we were putting together our childcare plan that childcare costs were like a second mortgage. And so absolutely bringing down childcare fees by 50% this year, which is the commitment, will be a huge, huge source of support when it comes to affordability challenges. And by the way, it's going to help with our labor force challenges as well, because it will make it easier for mothers to work if they choose to. That is why I was really glad to come out here on March 28th and announce an agreement with the province of Ontario, $10.2 billion over 5 years for early learning and childcare. I've heard the same concerns that you referred to in your question about challenges with putting that money into action. It's the responsibility of the province to put this plan into action. The fact that Ontario was the last province that we signed a deal with does inevitably mean that this is happening on a little bit of a later timeline than in other provinces. There are provinces across the country where that 50% reduction has already come into force. But we have a very good working relationship with the province of Ontario. We are very committed to early learning and childcare. I believe the province is too. We're happy to provide them with whatever support we can to put this in action. And I really want to say, I'm grateful for the question, and everyone for whom this is an important issue, make your voice heard. The money is there.
Hi, Minister. This is Jasleen from PTC Punjabi News Channel. Looking at the cost of living and high inflation rate, recession fears are already growing across the country. Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives did a study, and as per them, Bank of Canada's strategy of rapidly increasing the key interest rate will likely trigger a recession. So at what point should Canadians be concerned?
Look, I think it's really important for me to be honest with Canadians. And being honest with Canadians starts by saying no one has a crystal ball about where the economy is going to go. There are some very unpredictable global forces in play, which we don't control. You know, I can tell you, Vladimir Putin does not call me up when he makes his war plans, and the government of Canada is not in charge of how China is dealing with COVID. So there are some significant forces out there which our government is not responsible for. But what I can tell you is this. Of all the countries in the world, certainly of all the major industrial economies, there truly is no country better positioned to deal with the current economic challenges than Canada is. We are predicted by the IMF and the OECD to have the strongest rate of economic growth in the whole G7 this year and next year. That's a real strength going into a challenging time. I would also say to Canadians, you know, the institution whose job it is to bring inflation back under control is the Bank of Canada. The Bank of Canada has the mandate, it has the tools, and it has the expertise to do that. And I think we should all have confidence that the Bank of Canada will do its job. And then, you know, finally, what we all, I think, are working towards and hoping for is a soft landing. We've been through so much in the past 2+ years, right? We've been through COVID, we've been through lockdowns, we've been through the COVID recession when 3 million people lost their jobs. Now we're going through the reopening of the Canadian and the global economy, plus a war and the attendant high prices. So really, I think we need to think about this as kind of a single economic storm. And what we're all trying to do together is land the airplane of the Canadian economy and land it in a way that we see prices coming down, but stable growth and high levels of employment maintained. What economists talk about as a soft landing. And I really believe there is no country better positioned in the world, certainly no country in the G7 better positioned than Canada to achieve that soft landing.
I do have a follow-up question, as my colleague mentioned about the gas tax reduction. So Ontario government recently announced the temporary gas tax reduction, but the experts are saying that gas tax cuts won't do much without the help from federals. So is government
Won't do much without, sorry?
From federals. So is government planning on matching the tax reductions to help Canadians?
So no action is off the table. We're looking at all possible policies, and we are aware, you know, the biggest affordability challenges for Canadians are the price of fuel and transport, the price of food, and housing. So we're looking at everything, and I would point out that when it comes to the carbon price, that is money which is going back into the pockets, into the bank accounts of Canadian families. All of us, family of 4 here in Ontario, we're going to get $745 back this year. That is really significant, and that in and of itself is a significant help with affordability.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Graham Frisk from the Brampton Guardian and Mississauga News. I'm just wondering, right now is probably the worst time, I mean, with inflation and the cost of borrowing going up for businesses, and now I guess with the federal business loans from COVID coming due, I guess the emergency business account there. Is there any plans for the government to possibly extend repayment on that to help small and medium businesses sort of be able to sort of cope with everything that's happening right now?
The CEBA loans. Yeah, that's a good question, and I was very glad that we put the CEBA program in place. when the COVID recession hit. I think that was part of a set of measures that helped our economy get through the COVID recession without being, permanently scarred and mutilated. And it's one of the reasons that today we have such a strong jobs performance, 117% of jobs recovered, and our economy is actually 2.2% bigger than it was pre-COVID. So that was an investment in getting through the COVID recession. I'm glad we did it. In terms of the CEBA loans, there is some time before repayment is due. And of course, a significant portion of those loans is forgivable. So not all of the money that businesses got needs to be repaid. But it's definitely something that we continue to look at.
The thing I want to ask about, especially in Brampton, Brampton Council has a lot of sort of lofty infrastructure plans that they're kind of counting on federal and provincial funding for. And I'm sure it's not alone in municipalities. Given the amount of spending that's occurred during COVID and sort of these challenges that we're facing now, how much, I guess, can municipalities realistically expect in terms of help from the government for these sorts of projects?
Yeah, another good question. I would point out that in the Budget Implementation Act, which was passed in June, that included $750 million for municipalities to help them with the transit shortfall that happened because of COVID. So that is some direct support for municipalities. There is also now, as you know, what we used to talk about as the gas tax fund has now become permanent ongoing funding to municipalities to support particularly new infrastructure. And then finally, we have a really historic federal infrastructure program which is still being implemented, which involves provincial and municipal participation so we can actually build those projects. So there is a lot of money already in the pipeline to support infrastructure projects in Brampton and across the country. And it's important to emphasize that because this is money already accounted for. This is money that was in the 2021 budget and in the 2022 budget. It's money which, objective credit ratings agencies like S&P know that we're intending to spend, and knowing that they've reaffirmed our AAA credit rating. And then the final thing I'll say on fiscal responsibility, because it's very important right now, is Canada continues to have the lowest debt to GDP ratio in the G7, and Canada and the United States are tied in the G7 for the fastest rate of cutting our deficit and debt, which is appropriate in this period of high inflation.
Rajendra Saini from Parvasi Media Group. First of all, welcome to Brampton. Interviewed you a couple of times. We could talk virtually.
We have. It's nice to see you again.
Yeah, during COVID 2 times, and welcome to Brampton, first of all. Okay, so my question is that at this time, first of all, we would like to thank federal government for SEBA, wage subsidy, rent subsidy, all these kind of measures. They helped small businesses to stay on. But now we are in the second phase. So we have shortage of labor. Most of the businesses are struggling with the workforce, with the labor. Now, I interviewed the Minister of Immigration, Sean Fraser, last week, and I could also had a chance to talk to Mary Ing, Minister of Small Businesses. Both of them were agreed that we have this big problem in the country. We have 500,000 job shortages at this time. On the other hand side, we have 1.8 million people waiting to come to Canada, waiting for their files to be accessed. So this is a big shortfall as far as our workforce is concerned. I know it's not directly linked to your ministry, but as a government, what you would suggest? How early we can expect these people to come here and be part of the workforce so that these small businesses can get relief?
I think it's a great question. And when one of my jobs is to be a saleswoman for Canada. One of my jobs is to go around the world and tell people, invest in Canada. Our country is in great shape. And when I am doing that job, one of the things that I talk about as being a really unique Canadian strength is, we are probably, of all the rich industrialized countries, the one which is the most open to immigration, the one which is the most welcoming of new Canadians. And genuinely, there is a broad national consensus in Canada that new Canadians make our country stronger, more prosperous, and actually just more interesting and more Canadian. That is a huge strength, and our government has announced the highest ever immigration targets for this year and the subsequent years. And actually, we are on track this year to meet that very ambitious target. And I think that's a good thing, and we need to lean into it. Do we need to do even better and get more efficient? I totally think we should. I think it's something that matters to a lot of families who I talk to, and it's something that would provide tremendous relief for a lot of businesses. It's something that these gentlemen talked to me about today, would help here at KJS. And I do also want to say, where was one of my earlier questioners, the early learning and childcare question is relevant when it comes to labor shortages as well. If we can make it easier for mothers to go to work, that is another solution to labor shortages and another strength that Canada has going into these latest challenges. And the final thing I'll say about it is a strong pro-immigration policy, which our government has to go hand in hand with a strong housing policy. If we want to continue to welcome immigrants, we need to be sure we have homes for them and for the people already in Canada. And that's why my budget in April focused so much on housing, on building more homes for a growing country.
Okay, I don't have a question, but just want to bring to your notice and all the honorable MPs also. We talked last time that Ministry of Infrastructure, they have a program where new build and retrofit under those programs, all those non-for-profit organizations like our even mandirs, our gurdwaras, all those religious places, they can apply. They gave the clarification that yes, if you are using these facilities for community kitchen or these kind of services, you can also come under the ambit of this program. But unfortunately, when we encourage people, more than 150 religious organizations applied all over the country. And I just shared with your staff, Marco, also, all those letters. Everyone has been rejected. On one hand, we are encouraging people for renewable energy, for green energy, but on the other hand side, those people who applied and took a lot of time for them to apply for that, every single organization has been rejected. So I will request you and all the MPs also to look into that. We should encourage those gurdwaras, temples, to put on the rooftop solar and renewable energy so that they can be role model for others also. So we can encourage solar energy in this country, renewable energy, but they have rejected every single application. So everyone is agitated. Because I shared with you last time when I interviewed you, and you promised me that you will look into that, but unfortunately they have always have been rejected. So please look into that.
Okay, well, thank you for raising that. Thank you for sharing the letter. And I'm going to have coffee with the Brampton caucus when we're all finished here, and it's something we'll definitely talk about. We really believe as a government that the green transition is important, not just because it's important for our planet, but it's economically essential. And I think it's really important for the government to help businesses, community organizations, families make that transition. So very happy to look into this. Thank you.
Hi, Minister. Kyle, CB24, but this question comes from CTV National. The federal government is under pressure to cancel the ArriveCAN app as a way to help ease delays at the airport. What is the rationale for keeping the app?
The ArriveCAN app played a really important role in the sort of the depths of COVID, the COVID recession, and the COVID health crisis. And I think it's important for us as Canadians to recognize what a good job we as a country have done in fighting COVID. You know, Canadians, like, we're known, modesty is a recognized national characteristic, and I think that is a good thing. But there was a recent study published last week of 11 comparable countries, the G7 plus a few, and they found that of that group, Canada had the second lowest mortality rate from COVID. Only Japan did better. That is really significant. You know, look at your parents, look at your grandparents, and be really, really glad at what a good job we as a country have done so far fighting COVID. The Arrive Can app has played a very important role there. And I want everyone to recognize it was really hard, but overall, we've done a good job at saving lives during COVID. And we need to remember COVID is not finished with us yet. And we may have to start thinking about it more in the fall. We should all certainly be getting our 3 doses and be thinking about being ready to get a 4th booster when those are available and appropriate. On the Arrive Can app and its the role it has to play today, I am certainly aware of the challenges we are facing at our borders and at our airports. And I think everyone in Brampton is very aware of that too. And definitely the federal government is and needs to be constantly reevaluating what can we do to make things easier and smoother at all of our borders. At the same time, we do need to appreciate that the measures we've taken so far have saved literally tens of thousands of lives, that COVID is still here. So that's a balance we have to strike, and we need to constantly reevaluate. Thank you.
Yes, very quick, yeah. My name is Jagdish Kariwal from Canadian Punjabi Post. Quick question is, first of all, I admire Canadian government. They help a lot to the Ukrainian families to bring them here and settle them here. My question is pointed toward the Afghan, Hindu, Sikh families. When will we be able to see them here? I think only couple hundred left there. So my question is about Afghan, Hindu, Sikh families, when the government will clear their path to bring them here.
Yeah, I think that is a very important question, and something which many members of caucus and also my colleague Minister Sajan have been very outspoken about, and something they, you know, specifically, and we as a government are very focused on. I think these are very persecuted communities, and communities that there is a lot of support for in Canada. It is a very challenging environment. It's a challenging environment to operate in, but it's a good question, and it's something our government very much sees as an important issue.
Thank you so much. This concludes the press conference.
Okay, thank you very much, everyone.